Welcome to Will Talks. We have today with us Rakhee Chhabria. Rakhee Chabria has been the co-founder or the founder rather of Teachers Help Teachers, one of the one of the most beautiful groups that I've been part of, and I've seen the evolution of this group over I think over 15 years or so. And so in 2009, I think I remember clearly, I was looking for when I'd started the school in 2005, and then I was looking at people who can really set the instructional pedagogy in the school, really set how learning and teaching and learning actually happens. And it was such a rare talent to find because people were not even using words like curriculum or build a curriculum or there has to be a curriculum. And I was really looking for people at that time, and somehow I found you. And I remember coming all the way from almost I traveled 2 hours and I met you, and then you said come home, and I come there, and I see you, you were pregnant, and I'm like, wait, what's going on? And I still remember, in quite good detail, you were talking about curriculum. You were saying you wanted to write curriculum, you wanted to help schools, you wanted to build all that for schools and enable things to happen. So for me, at that part of my journey, as a school leader, I felt like having something like that is so critical, and I really wonder how many schools don't actually have something that they can fall back to in terms of a very strong, codified, defined instructional philosophy there, right? Or a guiding document. What was your, how are you taking it at that point in time? Tell us a little bit more about where you've come from, your story as an individual, as a person, because I've watched you for 20 years and I'm super inspired by the work that you do.
So, very valid point you put across that it's scary, to actually start something without having a guiding document. And in those days, very few people were aware about what a curriculum meant. When I was teaching at Aravidya Mandir, I resigned after 4 years. And, I didn't see myself being in the classroom for the rest of my life. And I felt that, there's so much to do, especially in education. And there's so much to learn, where I kind of decided that I took up a learning disability course, and that was like a bulb on moment where I felt that so much of difference can be made in a life of a child with special needs. Every teacher can actually make that difference. So I resigned, and I remember pursuing my further studies, and I was fortunate enough to get admission in SNDT. And so I've always been like the last comer in the classroom. Even for my ECCA, I remember I joined like almost a month after the course started, and I jumped into it. But once I jump into it, there's no looking back. So even for same, it was tough for me to resign and take up further studies. But again, I knew my deadlines that before I start a family, I need to have that education in place. So I remember completing my B.Ed, M.Ed back to back, and those were, I think, the best days. The college, going back to college after working, so gives you a very, very different perspective towards education. So that, I think, set my foundation very strong, and because I had worked for 4 years, and after that, when you pursue studies, it really changes your perspective in education. Uh, on top of that, of course, you learn new things. You come across professors who are so experienced and who are so knowledgeable that you just love what you're doing. You just love learning. And I think that's the whole aim of education, right? Developing the love for learning. And I think I was fortunate enough because I had great educators to instill that in me. And after having done that, I was working as a special educator part time, and I was also designing content as a freelancer. But that was something that was not satisfying to me because the content that came to me was pre-designed. I had to fit my ideas into the box, and that was something which I was not happy with because those ideas were not actually in sync with the pedagogy of child development. And that's where I felt that why are we so hell-bent on filling information on so much of rudimentary work that we want to focus on, that we forget the entire beauty of the playway method. We talk about Frobel, we talk about holistic approach, we talk about subject integration, but what are we doing? We killing the joy, we killing the love. We see young learners in our classroom, and we're filling them with so much information, right from what's there in the newspapers to knowing your president, to knowing your prime minister at the age of 4. Okay, I do agree that it's like it gives you a sense of pride, when your child is able to answer questions when it comes to current affairs. But what happens within? What are we doing for the heart? What are we doing? We're just feeding the mind, but what are we doing for the heart? And at the end, I always feel that the end of education is character. So that is what defines you. How you deal with the person who's of probably no use to you, or who has nothing to give you. So that's what your character is. How you deal with the person who has nothing in store for you, with whom you have no kind of lena dena. Yeah. So that's what I feel. Yeah.
It's amazing when you say that, because when you've taught for 4 years as a teacher inside the classroom, you've seen the realities of a classroom, and in many cases how grim it is. Yesterday I was watching a series of the director of education of a district in Philadelphia, and he wanted to make so much change happen, and then he gets into all the schools and into the classrooms, and he what he does, he resigns. He resigns as a director from the of education of that district of Philadelphia, because he says that we are making all these promises to children, we are making all these promises to parents, and collectively as a system, as a government, only 40% of them are actually making it to and through college. And so he was like, we're failing 60% of them. So there's something absolutely wrong with the model. And there's something absolutely wrong with the way education is delivered. And this is the United States of America, right? So this is like an advanced economy. And to me, that immediately tells me that, wow, the problem is so huge, the problem is so big. And it doesn't take it just takes a very conscientious educator to get into the classroom, open his eyes, and see the ground realities. And for me, when you say something like you were in the classroom for 4 years and then you decided to quit, but you quit so that you can come back better, more equipped, more armed. So what are the things that you learned in this special school? Because I really feel that I've actually seen special educators being very different educators with all kinds of children. I think in India, we've just boxed the special education as separately and some other education. I don't even think we've given name to the other education. The special has been given as a name.
Normal.
What are your
We call
thoughts
it
around
normal.
those things, and how did it make you a better teacher?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Willie. So I felt that when I completed my B.Ed and M.Ed, it was a journey by itself. It taught me to actually think about all the nitty-gritties in terms of, like, for example, I remember I was going for my lesson somewhere in Malad, and we used to travel to different schools and deal with give lessons to different children with different multiple disabilities. It's not only like one learning disability, it's multiple disabilities. And every lesson plan required you to keep that child's disability and strengths, that how is this child going to learn. For example, if it's a child with autism, what are his or her strengths? And that's what we had to capitalize on in our lesson plan so that we could come across them. And this, I felt, was something which was missing when I was teaching. Because when I was in the classroom with 40 children, I was nowhere tapping on their strengths. I was only following the document, the curriculum. Of course, I was being creative in my own way as a teacher. I was trying to incorporate fun. I was trying to be creative and, kind of trying to have different activities every single time. But what special education taught me was, you look at the child from his or her strengths perspective and not the disability perspective. Disability, of course, comes in place to understand the child and not like a taboo or a label. It's something that helps you define that, okay, this is what I need to do. If it's a child with ASD, or if it's a child with, mental retardation, or if it's a child with Down syndrome, this is what I need to follow. These are the guidelines. So disability helps you be aware of the guidelines. But I think that was like an aha moment where every time I would design a lesson plan and I would show it to my guide, and I remember being, thrown with that lesson plan on my face that, go back, this is not it. And each time I would go back, I would be better. I would be better in my lesson planning. So I remember I was telling you about this one lesson that I was planning about how I was teaching this child with, not a child, it was adult with mental retardation, how to tie shoelaces. And it required me to actually break down that task into set of 15 to 20 instructions for that child, because it's a skill which is taken for granted, like tying a shoelace. We don't even pay attention. It's something that's happens unconsciously. It's like now driving. We do it unconsciously, but at that point in time, to sit down and break that task, it was called task analysis. To analyze that task from a perspective of a child who's learning that skill step by step. I think it helped me to come down to their level, and as I said, pick on their strengths. So I think these two are a perfect combination to actually take back to your classroom as an educator, be it in school or be it as a special educator, highlighting on the strengths of your students and breaking down the task to the T to understand that, okay, if 39 of them are understanding in this particular way and one is not able to understand it, then I need to further break it down for that child to be able to reach out to that child. So that was a wonderful perspective that I got. And of course, there are so many learnings in terms of patience, in terms of being empathetic, and in terms of dealing with the parents. That was another important aspect which we learned, because you can never, you won't know the struggles a parent has to go through. So it kind of taught us how to, speak to the parents, especially of children with disability. So it gave a fresh perspective, and I am very, very happy that I was able to dive into that aspect, and I was able to devote those 2 years and give my best to those 2
I
years.
was thinking about at least 10 or 15 educators that I really respect and I really like. You're one of them.
Thank you.
And I was thinking about what's common. Why is it that I like these guys? Why is it that I admire their work? What is it that I respect about them? What is different? What makes them so different? And the funny thing is, they all are special educators.
Okay.
They all are special educators. And the way you put it just now, the fact that you break things down, you get it into little steps, you build a structure, you build gradation, and you really can't get away.
Isn't that curriculum, Willie?
It is, right?
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And then I started wondering why other people find it so difficult to break things down, because they've just not thought that way. And with a special educator, that person has absolutely no way to get away with the child not learning.
True.
Whereas in a normal classroom, in a mainstreamed classroom, you can get away with at least showing 50% of your class has learned something. The other 50% they learn it over time. Yeah. But a special educator, it's like yes, no. It's like a binary. And she has to somehow just overcome that obstacle.
I think we're not given that option, of not being able to reach out.
Yeah.
There's no option given. Like, I remember going back in the staff room and talking to my guide about, how is it that I'm going to be framing this lesson plan? How can I break this task, into such minute steps? And she would be like, I'm sure you can manage it. And I was like, oh, ma'am, I was expecting some kind of guidance. And she's like, that's for you to figure out. So I think I am what I am today thanks to my teachers, my professors, my guides, who were able to help me with the right kind of input without spilling the beans for me. So I think that is the most important job of and being an educator, where you consciously motivate your learner to figure out the path and to kind of figure out the solution, I would say, without actually putting it down in front of them. So that is something which made me, I was awake at night figuring out that, okay, what is it that I can do? I would talk to my friends, I would talk to my colleagues, but of course they would be in their own, journey, and somehow we had to figure it out. So there was no choice, as rightly said.
So I think every teacher, whether special or no, needs to get into some special education courses. I think they need to learn, read, or do some YouTube videos or something around that. But what I wanted to tell you is, when I met you so many years ago in 2009. Even then, I could get the feel from you. The energy that I had from you was like, you're going to make something happen. You saying no to the status quo. You're saying, no, ऐसा नहीं चलेगा. I want to do something. I want to make something happen. And look at what you've done, right? After that, I don't think you had Teachers Help Teachers at
No,
that time.
I didn't have teachers help teachers at that
No,
point in time.
it was
No.
you were just like a
I was only into curriculum
first time
development
mother
and-
going to be. I think you even shifted your house and everything was like super moving
it was
around you.
quite
But your
hectic.
sense of leadership
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know something happened there. Tell us about this teacher help teacher thing and how did you do it
So-
alone? Yeah, like what's your
I think
like,
teachers help teachers was something that fell into my lap, just like my the younger one, second child. They both happened together. And prior to teachers help teachers, I remember taking up. I ran my own company for 5 years where we train teachers and develop curriculum. And my last project was for a rural school in Sangli. And that's when I felt that, okay, I think I'm done with it. I've given it all that I had. And maybe now I need to move on. So because, in our country, though we give a lot of focus on curriculum, having a curriculum, having training your teachers and having everything in place, a system in place, but I do feel it's more of a copy paste system that we follow. So if something is working for someone, just copy paste the same, without actually knowing that just like every child is different. Every school functions differently. The teachers of every school are different. So that's where something I felt that, okay, I think we've kind of not able to understand that, and it was getting too difficult for me to convince leaders that, okay, this is not the way we do it. So I felt, okay, if that's the culture, copy paste culture that we want to follow, then I don't think I fit somewhere there. And I took up a job in 2015 or 14 as an academic head of a preschool chain that was coming up at that point in time. And I was supposed to frame the curriculum for them, appoint teachers, take care of the teacher training, designing their branches that were coming up. I worked for 3 months and I realized I was pregnant. So I had to leave that position because it required a lot of traveling. And I think that was one of the best things that happened because had it not been for my younger one, I would be on a different path. Teachers help teachers wouldn't happen in that case. And I took a sabbatical, and I think I did a lot of research. So I'm more of a self-learner. I love learning, and I like to discover things by myself. Where there's so much on YouTube. There's so much that Google can give us today, and of course, talking to people in our same industry also helps you. So I reach out to people whenever I want something to be done or I'm unclear about it. I reach out to my professors. I reach out to people like you. And that's how I am, I think. I think it's also special education, that has trained us to kind of, solve our own problems. So, when I was doing research on Facebook groups, I realized, what is it that makes people join groups? What is it that makes you interact on a public forum? And what makes you go back to that group again and again to probably check something? And I did some research on it, and I realized that there were many groups on Facebook at that point in time pertaining to education, but there was none specifically for Indian educators. And when I was a part of various Facebook groups pertaining to education, even on LinkedIn, there are various groups pertaining to education. And I always felt that we Indian educators always take a backseat. We are the listeners. Of course, things are changing now. But way back, I'm talking about 2014, 15, where, we like to take that seat where we like to listen and, we like to absorb. And we do what we do in our own private, kind of space, and we don't share. And what happens to that? It stays where it is. So that was something that I noticed, and I felt that let's have like a closed group for educators, Indian educators, where we can understand each other, we can share, concepts with each other, we can clear. Any kind of, if you're not able to understand something, if there's some kind of clarity you need in terms of teaching a concept before you enter your classroom, if that's a space that I can create, a safe space for learning for teachers. So we educators create safe learning spaces for students, but who creates that safe space for us? uh, you would say, okay, the principals, the management, the culture of the school creates the safe space for teachers. But it depends from school to school, right? So when I noticed that, when I observed that, I just decided to give it a try, without thinking too much. So, and I also realized that most of the times I don't take action because I think a lot. And when I don't think, I take action. So I just took action. I floated a group. I invited, 200 people whom I knew, and I requested them to join the group. And I told them that this is what the group is meant for sharing, for learning, for resources, because we all need resources, and creative ideas. That's something that every teacher needs, how to teach creatively in the classroom. So it took me like good 2 years just to get the engagement going, because nobody would talk, nobody would share. And it took me like time, and I realized that, if you got to see something, you got to walk the talk. So I started sharing on the group, and I was teaching children with disabilities. So I started sharing my own struggle, where I was stuck, where I was not able to get through. And I would invite suggestions that, hey, I'm stuck teaching this, times table to the 7-year-old child. What do I do? Any suggestions? And the suggestions would pour in. And I would share YouTube videos. I would share inspiring news. I would share anything pertaining to education that educators should know. And I would share all of that, because I would read a lot, so I would share a lot. And I think after 2 years, the group came on autopilot mode, where people started understanding the ethos of the group, what it is meant for, what are the kind of educators that I would want to be a part of. And whenever there would be any query where there would be no answers, I would tag. So I would tag people from the industry, and I would request them that, would you please be able to reply to this query? Because I know that, this query can be replied by so-and-so person. It's just that so-and-so person has not noticed it on the group. So I would tag and I would request them, and the query would be answered. So I think it was a lot got to do with seeing the teachers that I wanted to see for my children. Because I had my elder one who was 5 years, and my younger one who was like almost 2, 1.5, 2. And I felt that, if I need to see those kind of teachers in the system, we need to start doing something which is going to motivate them, which is going to help them understand, what we as parents expect, and what we as teachers are expected to do. So it's not that, just because the management or the principal is telling you to go attend a workshop, you attend a workshop. And today it's no longer that way. Back then it was, but today it's no longer that way. Today we have teachers coming to us and asking us that, hey, can you plan a workshop for us? We're struggling with this topic, or could you plan something for us? And that's something where I feel that, yes, the change is coming. And it's slow, of course, but we do see a change out there.
How many people you have in this group now?
So today we have 12,000 educators across India.
12,000.
And of course, today there are many such avenues that have opened up for teachers, where there are so many edtech platforms, and there's so many groups, and there's so many WhatsApp groups. But way back then, I think we were the first ones to actually dive into creating a community. And it's always going to remain a community. And that's something that I've been very clear, that it's a community for teachers to come, share, seek suggestions, get their queries answered. Because, as teachers, there are many of us who want to grow, but we don't know how.
So one or two things that you said, no, it really sparked off some thoughts in me. Like one of the things you said was like, people don't like to share; they're only listening. Is that a problem with, or is that a uniqueness to only teachers and education field, you think, or is it got to do with, I don't know, I want to be very careful here, but education is filled with like 90% women are there in the workforce. And is there something that we as men in education need to understand, or need to accommodate, or need to be aware of? Because I'm also part of a lot of these WhatsApp groups with principals, and no one shares anything. But the minute somebody shares, everyone has their opinions, right? And another funny thing is, if I share something on these groups, I will get 5 DMs, but nobody will write on the group. So is there something that have you noticed anything like this from your group experience or from your other WhatsApp experiences?
Yeah,
Are people trying to protect their reputation all the
I think
time?
you're very
I
right.
don't know.
You're very right. And with due respects to everybody in the field of education, I think where we get stuck is we have the fear of being judged, everyone.
Mm.
And especially when you are someone who is like a known personality, or you're like a trustee, or you're like a principal, then you become all the more aware. You have those many guards.
Mm.
If you're a teacher, you're still kind of on the fence. You will share when
Mm.
you want to, you will not share when you don't want to. As a principal, it's like a double fence. As a trustee, it's like a triple. So you got to be like, be seen in a particular way, be heard in a particular way. So I think we keep that to ourselves, but we're actually not able to as you rightly said, that when we share something, we see people giving their opinions, we see DMs coming in, but nobody shares on the group. And I feel that's a culture that we are in today. It's changing again, but more or less I feel that if we want that culture to be seen, we got to do more of it. And I see you doing it, and I really appreciate whatever you learn, you share. And that's something that I have always followed as a community approach. I invite teacher leaders to come and share on our platforms. I learn from them, others learn from them. What I learn, I share. And I just feel that if you have that knowledge, you got to share it. Where are you going to take it with you? I mean, it's just going to remain where it is. How's it going to grow? And if someone can actually make 2 + 2 5,
Mm.
I think you've done your work. You've done your bit of giving back to the
Yeah.
society.
Yeah.
So
So with all these years of experience in education and with teachers and with educators and all that, what have you like? What has your experience been with the present situation in schools? What did have you been through? Because me, like I've had a big problem with figuring out what are the kind of school that I want to send my child to. What are the kind of, because end of the day, after all the marketing and the branding and the this and the that and the shosha and everything, right? At end of the day, it boils down to that 30 minutes in the classroom, right? It boils down to the teacher. It boils down to what's going on in the classroom. It boils down to, is my child learning? You know, there's only so much you can do with all these reassurances and stuff like that. So what, I don't know, what has been your personal anything that you've had with present day schools, school systems, and the cost of education? Yeah, like have you heard of fees like 2 lakhs and 3 lakhs and
yeah,
4
big.
lakhs and 5 lakhs and the normalization of that, like 1.5 lakh, 2 lakh to normal hota hai. And if you have 2 kids, you're spending like 40,000 rupees a month without transportation,
Plus school bus.
plus school bus, and plus, I mean, where are we today? And is that value getting added to children, or what do you feel? What are your thoughts around these things?
Yeah, I truly feel that if we're looking at privatizing education, we were kind of looking at charging those kind of fees to parents, then we got to give that kind of value.
Mm.
And to kind of give that kind of value, we have to invest heavily on our teachers, which I don't see it happening, unfortunately. Because we have so many teachers in our community, and there are so many of them who are self-learners. There are many of them who will only attend if they are asked to, and there are some of them who feel that, okay, why do I need to attend? I know it all. I think I've been doing it beautifully since the past so many years, and I'm going to be doing it beautifully for the rest of the years that I have. So there's a lot of mindset shift that we need to see. There's a lot of investment that we need to see coming in. Of course, with the new education policy specifying so many things, and with so many new promises, there's a beautiful picture that's being painted, but how far it gets implemented, that's something that we will come to know eventually. But there's a complete overall that I feel that our education system demands today. And in terms of value, I would say that school has become more of a social space for learning for students. When I ask my child, why do you want to go to school? You can learn everything that you want to learn from YouTube, because there's like Khan Academy, and there are so many other platforms that have beautiful content coming up. So I actually asked him, I said, why you want to go to school? I think, Mama, I want to go to school because I want to stay connected. I want to know what's happening. I want to be connected with my friends. I want to know, I love my teachers. I like the way they teach. And when I hear that one sentence, I like the way they teach, I love my teachers, that's kind of assuring for a parent to know that, okay, theek hai, something is happening, right? And that's it. At the end of the day, I just want that, the child respecting the teacher. And that's something that comes from within, nobody can command it. So when I hear that, I feel, okay, theek hai, I'm happy. But in terms of choice of schools, frankly speaking, my children go to a Waldorf school. And I chose that school because I don't want to feed them with information. And Waldorf doesn't believe in reading and writing right till the age of 6. And being in this field of education, framing curriculum content and framing content where children are expected to read and write by the age of 6, I was, having done that, I was very clear I don't want them to go through this grill. So I think somewhere that also played an important role in understanding that, feeding the mind is not something that's going to help. It helps to a certain extent because we feel that, yeah, early years are the most effective years. They are like sponge. They can absorb. They can learn languages. They can do so much. Child prodigy, we hear it. But I'm of that opinion that the more relaxed the early years are, the more chances of them being creative. The more bored they are, the more chances of them being able to figure out that, being in awe, being in wonder, being curious. That's what I want the child to be. I don't want the child to actually come back home with homework. I don't want that. So when schools would ask us that, okay, we want a separate homework booklet, we want a separate classwork booklet, and we want worksheets, 2 worksheets per concept per day going back home. And I remember my partner and me would fight over it. And like, why? Why do you want homework for a 5-year-old child? Just let them breathe and play. Let them be dirty. Why? No. Parents demand. So today I would say that schools are functioning more or less out of the fear of what parents expect out of them. It's not out of what they would want to do. It's out of the fear of what parents expect. And I think that's where things are kind of being misaligned. And, we're hearing all sorts of stories. We're hearing, whatever we're hearing on social media. Of course, it's amplified, but being educators, we know what's happening. And pandemic was like an eye opener. It was something where we felt that, arey, padhai online bhi ho sakti hai.
Yeah, I mean,
that was something
what were some of the stories you came through during the pandemic in terms of all these teachers and suddenly teachers probably have to learn skills that they never thought
absolutely
that they had.
So
I don't know. And schools didn't have any technology.
Any
Schools
idea.
did not have a clue of what's going on.
I think Google and Zoom.
Yeah,
a blessing.
parents were like parents. I don't know. I like the pandemic just hit everybody without knowing.
I think pandemic was a very, very great teacher, and it kind of I feel it kind of set those system. Whatever systems were missing, that is something that we started looking at. That if it is systemized, if it is digitized, if it is planned well, this is how we can achieve the learning outcomes and learn. And especially for adult learning, I think online learning is becoming one of the best platforms. Look at the way edtech industry has boomed, because upskilling is something which is the next big sector. Everyone is talking about upskilling and that's not because of the way things are moving. It's not like a trend, but it is something which is a fact where today, if you're not upskilling yourself, you like, being moving closer to being extinct, I would say. You're no longer going to be able to deal with those students in your classroom. Look at the kind of questions they come up with. It's challenging being a teacher today. And if you're not like on your toes, if you're not abreast of all knowledge that, especially pertaining to your subject and field, it's a tough time you're going to face in the classroom. So, yes.
I'm actually thinking like the next big opportunity is going to be with teachers going to be monetizing their knowledge.
Absolutely.
And a lot of teachers may actually leave teaching. Are you seeing teachers leaving teaching and not trying to get into this field, or is there something that you're seeing around? Because I'm seeing a lot of teachers slowly drop out of this field, and they don't want to be teachers anymore. And many of the really good teachers again stop teaching, and they're trying to figure out how they can monetize their knowledge and their experience. And to one thing, in a particular way, it's a really good thing because definitely schools and institutions all across the country need to be spending way more money than they are in terms of teacher professional development and upskilling teachers. And I mean, that is, they have to. And suddenly there's this whole, you are going to have a
Yeah.
dearth of good quality
Good quality
trainers
teachers. Yeah.
and people who are in this. So I really wonder how teachers are going to what are the possibilities for teachers today. Have you seen anybody any personal experience of teachers leaving
Yeah,
schools?
of
What do
course.
they do after that?
Especially during the pandemic, there were so many teachers, that were forced. Some of them were forced to leave. Some of them didn't want to bear the burden because of the kind of stress that it created, and also the kind of time that they get. They don't get time to spend with their family, to actually have that free time to be creative. So a lot of teachers are struggling with that today. Huge demands on teachers being placed today in terms of not only upskilling but in terms of being able to uh, you know fulfill all the duties. Like, it's like we're supposed to wear different hats
Yeah.
at the same time, and that's something which is becoming practically impossible for teachers to manage. And I do see a lot of experienced teachers slowly moving out and trying to create their own niche, their own space in terms of monetizing their knowledge, because they know that they're good at it, number one. And the only thing is that they fear leaving that job is because of the regular stable income that comes in.
And you had a stable income, so you know how it feels. How did it feel?
Yeah. So I would say it's a risk that you're taking. Number one, of course, it is a risk, but at the same time, the way you evolve and the way you look at problems, you become a problem solver, and at the same time, you kind of make peace with it, that come what may, this is it. This is it. What I want to do, and I'm going to be able to do it. So that's the kind of conviction that you need to you actually develop over a period of time. I won't say that you have it before you leave it, but you jump into it, and that's how you develop it, right? So till the time you don't jump or dive into the pool, how are you going to know how are you going to know how deep it is? So you gradually learn, and then you become an expert. It's like driving, at first time you get a car, you're like looking at the gears, you're looking at the steering wheel, you're looking at the rear view mirror, you're wondering where your attention should be.
Yeah.
And then, okay, slowly you start driving, and then after a couple of years, you're like, talking on the phone, you're driving, you're talking,
Doing all that.
and you're doing
So
all that.
the word conviction you use is very powerful because
Yeah.
my mom used to always use that word as I was growing up, and she said, "Unless you really have a conviction, you're not going to do anything.
not gonna
Nothing's
do
going to
it.
happen." And
Absolutely.
that conviction comes with a great sense of self belief,
Self-confidence.
Yeah,
Which I feel
exactly.
that it's something which is so easily robbed off, your self-confidence, your self-worth. It takes a lot to build on it. It takes a lot to work on it. Like, I remember I've been there, I've been in the dumps, I've gone up again, and I've been lost again. And it's like a constant search for what you want to do, because you start off with a vision, and then you come across people, you come across ideas. It's I call it the red it's called the red lady syndrome, where you actually your eyes are only going to notice the shiny object, the shiny syndrome, where your eyes are going to notice all that's shiny, and you kind of forget why you started and what was your vision, and you kind of start following that shiny object till kind of reach a roadblock, and then you realize that, oh, this is not where I was supposed to be, this is not whom I'm supposed to follow, or this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not it's not incongruent with my true self, and that's a search, I feel. And I'm still, like, searching for that. I would say the true calling, though more or less I feel that I am following that path, and the passion that I have, and the kind of difference that I want to make. It takes a while, for someone who's been drawing that kind of income to actually go back and figure it out all by herself to reach there. So it takes a toll. It's not easy, but the journey is something that I focus upon every single time. I look at the journey, and I look at how I have evolved, and I look at how I am evolving, and it's like, I call it like the 1%, the marginal difference that it makes to me every single day. I'm better than what I was yesterday, and that's something that is has kept me going. Yeah. So coming back to, I think what you said is that teachers being able to monetize their knowledge, that's the next thing that I'm seeing in my group as well, where in the community a lot of teachers have opened their own academy, and we have also helped some of them in terms of helping them understand how to actually build their influence and market themselves. So the kind of digital marketing support that they need, and the kind of content that they need to be sharing in order to attract those kind of customers. Because there's so many teachers who start and then they have self-doubt that, I'm not able to find students, can you help me find students? And I'm like, no, that's your forte. I mean, that's your knowledge that's going to be helping you.
There are 200 million
to-
students in India.
Yeah,
200
correct.
million students.
Correct. And with online teaching coming along the way, I think there's no dearth. You can find students even sitting in some other country. You will be attending your lectures, provided you know what you're doing and you have the conviction. And of course, if you need guidance, so that's something that we've started experimenting with teachers who are looking at monetizing their knowledge, where we can help them. So we called it the Build Your Academy course, where it was something that we were trying in the pandemic because of the fact that teachers were coming to us. And I feel that if from the community a teacher reaches out to us, it becomes our duty to be able to help them out, because that's the principle with which we kind of.
What if suddenly you get the attention of all the teachers in India and all of them are listening to you for the next 2 or 3 minutes? What would you like them to hear? Or rather, what would you want to tell them?
Very simple: invest in yourself. I think that's something that I have been doing, and that's something that I would want teachers to do, because it's not about the school, it's not about the facilities, it's not about the kind of equipments and materials that you provide. It's the connection that we're looking at. So if you cannot connect, if you can't come down to my level, if you do not have the skill, I would say. So in my book, The Art of Teaching, which I published on Kindle.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Tell
So
us
that
more
was
about this
something-
book. Yeah.
So that was more by an accident, where I felt that, this is something that I had and I wanted to share. And it's a basic book about, especially for the aspiring teachers, where, what are the kind of skills that you need to have? A must have, I would say. It's like, a check, reality check, that are you really ready for this? Are you going to be okay doing this for the rest of your life? Are you going to be okay facing these challenges that are going to come your way? Then of course we welcome you to this industry. But of course, every profession has their own challenges. But being a teacher requires you being extra resilient. You need to be absolutely clear why you're here. And it's not for some time pass or part-time job that you're here. Please don't do that, because you're dealing with young children. So don't, shape them until and unless you don't know what you're doing with your own self. So that's something which is very important. And I think that's how interviews today are becoming extremely important. Portfolios. So, today principals are demanding digital portfolios of teachers. So that's again something that we are working upon, where we help teachers build their digital portfolios. So how is it that you can, actually showcase what you have been doing?
I remember my mom when she was when she used to take these interviews. She used to have so many questions in the interviews, and she would do written interviews. And she would have questions like, "Why do you want to be a teacher?" And give me an instance in your life when something bad happened, or almost 10, 15 questions. And each of those questions she would put 7 or 8 lines, also telling, boss, you
Itna
can't
likhna hai."
itna likhna hai tumko, And I used to, when I took over the school, first thing I did, I removed all that. I removed all those, those forms, and I was like, make it simple for people to apply. Okay. And she was like, okay, whatever, young boy starting a school, he's got his own ideas. But now I start feeling like it's so important
To know the why.
It's so important to know the why. It's so important to look at their intention. It's so important to even actually see the skills. They are, how do you check? Everyone says, I'm passionate about teaching. Everybody says, I want to be a teacher. everybody says, I want to work with kids. मुझे बच्चे लोग के साथ काम करने को अच्छा लगता है. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, anyone can say that.
That I would say is just the beginning of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
so
not what it needs.
I'm putting all these things back now, into into the application
You should.
process.
Yeah, you should.
Because if teaching is a meaningful job for you, and if it's serious and significant, then you want to be putting in that kind of effort in putting in these applications and building your portfolio. And it's almost like people start working on their CV only when they want a job.
These kind of questions.
But the best time to work on your CV is while you're at a job.
Yeah.
Because you want to document everything, you want to put everything through,
So true.
you want to be able to bring yourself to your best self forth.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is something that teachers really have to learn. And with at least I'm part of your group, and I can see all the work that you guys are doing. So there's so much that teachers benefit, in that sharing and in that this thing. A lot of talk these days are about voice choice and agency for teachers. Teachers need a voice, teachers need choice, teachers need agency, and at times like these, to see groups like the Teacher Help Teacher groups really, I think, sort of in some way enables these.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple, right? Well, if your teachers aren't empowered, how are you going to empower your students? So it's very simple. I mean, teachers being role models, after parents, I think they are the next touch of contact, So if you are sending away your child for like 8 hours, 10 hours, you would not want your child to be spending time with someone who's just there for the sake of earning money, or just for the sake of being there. You would want some teacher who comes across not only as passionate, but also someone who can add value, to in the classroom, in the way the teaching is happening. And I'm not talking about content. Content is something that we all can avail of. What I'm talking about is the context. How is it that you build it? It takes a lot of preparation. It's not like, I just wake up and I go to the classroom, I teach on autopilot mode and I come back. There's so much of thinking that you need to be mindful of the kind of experiences that you bring into your content. And that is what is going to make you a good teacher, right? How you connect your content with the right context and how you deliver it.
And are you seeing that with your own children? They go to, don't name the school, but they're going to some school. And are you seeing that with your own children? Are you noticing children change?
Yes.
Do you like when you were a child, when you were 12 or 13 versus now?
It's very different. It's very different the way we were brought up. And we were like, we had set textbooks, and I went to an SSC medium school. So we had textbooks, we had guides se padho, ye questions aayenge, and that's about it. No looking here, there, nothing. Whereas today we don't have textbooks. Majority of the schools have done away with textbooks because they believe that why restrict learning, which is a very good thing to do. They bring in the best of various publishers, and that's how teachers are able to pick and choose content. They get freedom to choose their own content. That's where the voice choice comes in place. So today teachers have that say that, okay, I want this content from this particular publisher, or I want to use this book in my class. So that's the kind of freedom that we are seeing, and that is giving obviously a whole new scope to education. There's a lot of creativity that's stepping in, critical thinking, all the 21st century skills that we talk about are being
anything schools are missing, and anything you've seen in your own kids, and you're like, damn,
I just feel
why?
I just feel that parents and school, we're like a joint agency. We're not separate. So there are certain things which schools help us in, and there are certain things where we as parents need to be helping schools with. We cannot just say that, okay, my child is going to school and close your eyes, go to work, and they have jaan choti kind of attitude. No, that's not what it is. And unfortunately, in today's time, overparenting is something that we are all afraid of. That the schools are afraid of.
Okay.
That the schools want the parents to contribute and kind of be there and inculcate those kind of values that the school would want them to support with. But overparenting is something that the schools don't want the parents to support with. It's like the instant gratification. No, that's like a complete no. So I remember the days, our days when we were brought up, it was like, we were being punished. I remember being, so many times I would be punished and for not doing my homework. I would see those red lines in the report cards in my papers, and, we kind of got tough, we learned to deal with it, because we knew that there's a repercussion, there are these set guidelines.
You
But
feel
today I
children are
think,
being more fragile now?
yeah, because I think schools are also doing away from those guidelines because of the overparenting that's happening at home, where there's a cocoon being created for the child at home, and parents expect the same kind of cocoon in the school. That, okay, I've treated my child this way, and that's how I want the school also to treat my child. But I think that's something which is spoiling,
Because I remember a
education.
parent who came to me
Yeah.
and said, "Hum 5 saal se we were trying to have a child, 5 or 6 years, and finally we have a child." I was like, dude, what do you want me to do, right? And what they're actually telling me is, don't push this child, don't have high expectations from this children, don't all those things, like subtly, like that's almost like a threat. You start thinking about what expectations are. Sometimes a lot of parents come to me and say, सात 5 लड़के हैं, ये एक she's the only girl, so she's like the most
She's like the flower.
yeah. And I'm like, I want to build character in this child. I want to push this child. I want to create complexity C+1. I want to get this child to like touch her limits and then
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Just put like 4 or 5
I
stars.
would want a school like that, which
Yeah.
pushes the child and which makes the child feel that you're capable of much more. My teachers did that with me. They would like, when I was writing my thesis, I remember my guide, I think it was the 5th time that she approved my introduction chapter, for the thesis. And I
Today
felt
it
the
doesn't happen.
frustration. I felt the frustration in me, and I would like go back to my class, and we were like 7 students at that one time. I would go back, still disapproved, again disapproved, again disapproved. And I faced that, and that got the best out of me. Believe
I'm
me.
telling you that is how
is what
character
missing.
is built, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't get today. If I tell somebody if I tell somebody no, do it again, they find it insulting, like downright insulting, as if they think like they get it right first time.
You look at the question paper. I mean, the child goes back with the answer sheet, and the parents are like critically evaluating that. Oh, here the teacher could have given you 3. Why has she given you 2?
Exactly.
So that's
right?
something we don't
Disagreeing
want.
with the teacher.
That's something we don't want. Let them face their failures. Let them fail. Let them learn from their failures, and let them fail fast. I mean, are you waiting for them to become like 21 or 28 to fail? This is the best age. Let them fail. Let them triple. Let them just be it. Like with my own son, I've kind of course, being an educator, I do feel that,
He's
that
a teenager now, no?
responsibility. He's a
Life must
teenager.
be quite an adventure.
Life is a test every single day. So I'm learning every single day, as an educator, as a mother.
How's your level of communication with your teenager?
So yeah, so it's like it requires me to be more patient now. So yeah, that's what, like, kind of doing more of yoga now to calm myself down. So yeah, so he brings in his answer sheets, and so the other day he showed me his Hindi paper, and he was not happy with it. And I looked at it and I said, okay, you lost marks out here. So I think, you've realized where you've lost your marks, and that's more important. So I was not, worried about the kind of marks he got, because it's just the beginning. They don't have exams. So this was the first time he gave exams after 7 years. In the 7th grade, he gave his first exam. So I was not worried about the marks as much as I was worried about his realization that how does he feel? Does he feel happy about it? Hey, pass ho gaya. Or does he want to do better? Or does he even realize where he went wrong or what he left? So he came back and told me, I lost marks because I didn't get time. I couldn't complete this. And I looked at it and I said, yeah, you couldn't complete it. Otherwise, you could have got, better marks. But theek hai. So you know that you need to improve on your speed of writing in Hindi. And that comes with practice. So that's it. That was my corrective feedback given to him. There was no lecture. There was nothing.
Like for me, what I'm learning from that is like, don't focus too much on the stimuli. Don't focus too much on the experience, but focus more on how it has been received. Focus more on what the child is learning out of that experience. And I think as a parent, for example, like I have 2 girls myself, and it becomes difficult for me to be tough with them. And I really hope and pray that her teachers are tough with them. So that, difficult moments come into my child's life, and then I can be there to help process that experience for my child and make sure that it falls in the right way. The right lessons are derived out of that
So
situation.
true. So
Because if my child's teacher doesn't create that difficult moment, or that exam doesn't create that difficult moment, then how do I teach?
true.
Because
And
I don't want to.
that's where we look upon, to teachers for doing that, to schools for doing that, and to be able to kind of, I would say, harness the energy, because today we know how difficult it is to focus for all of us. I mean, I sit down to make a piece of content, and I know how many 10,000 times I'm distracted. So we've been talking about focus when it comes to adults. So you can imagine the kind of focus that learners have today.
Yeah.
So somewhere I was reading it's less than 8 seconds. I mean, it's the goldfish also has 8 seconds. So we are
Goldfish is probably
coming below goldfish also. It's
learning
7
more.
seconds. Yeah. So that's the kind of distraction that we have today. The gadgets, the peer groups, the WhatsApp groups, the kind of contents that's being rolled out on social media by all the news that comes in. So yeah.
Amazing, Rakhee, having you in the studio today, and super thrilled with all the work that you're doing with Teachers Help Teachers. And
Thank you so much.
12,000 teachers is huge.
Yeah. So our aim is to reach at least 1 million teachers. Yeah.
And that's gonna happen, God willing. And
absolutely.
the kind of amazing content that you're putting out there and enabling teachers to really get out there and start monetizing their work. I think that I've personally seen you over so many years, and I think that everybody who is part of your group and who actively engages really walks away as becoming a better teacher. So thank you,
Absolutely.
Rakhee, for being
Thank
here
you.
today.
Thank you so much.
See
It was
you.
a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you.